I know many YouTubers use VI for everything, but for me that is just a waste of time. VI is good in certain situations, but for simple config files, Meld is the best. So why Meld? Efficiency, of course. So how Meld works? So when you open Meld, you get this window. You can compare files, folders, and I never used this option. For folders, I don't use it Meld, I use Free File Sync, and that leaves us with files. So how it works? You click on file, and here the places that you can put the files you want to compare. You can click on this one and open a file manually, or you can just drag and drop the files you want to compare. And when you click compare, you will get something like this. If you have text in both files that you are comparing, but they are a little bit different, they will be colored with blue by default, and a little darker blue, it will mark the differences. If the text is the same, it won't be colored, and if the text is in one file and not in the other, it will be by default color green. And with these arrows, you decide which change you want to apply. For instance, if I want to transfer this text to the first file, I just click this arrow and it will automatically copy the part that was different. And for instance, I can just move this here, and now both the files are the same, which is stated here. And if you are happy with this, you just save one file, save the other file, and that's it. And this is pretty much all the Meld does. It's pretty simple, right? So why would I use it for config files? Well, for instance, let's say I have a laptop and a desktop, and I want my i3 configuration to be the same on the laptop as well as on the desktop. And sometimes I make changes to config on my laptop and sometimes on my desktop, and I want to quickly sync the files and see what's different. To do that, I just run an alias. What this does is open Meld with my i3 config file on my desktop or laptop, and a config file that is usually on Megasync, but for this video I put it in the documents. And then it automatically opens it on Workspace 4, because on the Workspace 4 I usually put everything that is concerned with editing files. So as you can see, the files are pretty much the same. There are just a few differences. For instance, here the terminal is console, and here I just use the default terminal that is on this machine, and that's XFC terminal if I'm not mistaken. Also the same thing with Dolphin and Tunar, and here I have few resolutions, and this is for when I'm on my desktop and this is for when I'm on my laptop. And I can see that I put some additional config on my desktop that I don't have on my laptop. So I can just transfer this here. I will leave the rest as it is, and now I just save the file. I can restart the i3, and I can see there are no errors, everything is working fine, and this is it. And everything is synced as on my desktop. The other nice thing is, for instance, when I'm changing my config file, and let's say I want to add here a custom i3 status bar, and I put in the path to my custom file, I save it, I restart it, and as you can see, nothing happens. I think i3 should report an error, but that's okay. And as you can see, nothing changed, meaning that this configuration is not okay. Now I added here only just a few words, so it's not a big deal, but let's say I have a much bigger chunk of text, and instead of remembering the new things that I entered, I can just from this file revert to the previous stage and save my file, and then when I have more time, I can just come back and see what was wrong. The point was that I didn't put this config for a config file. So now let's say I found the correct syntax. I save my file, I restart it, I see that everything is working here, and I can just enter my change to the file that is on Megasync, save it, and when I go to my desktop, I will see that this line is changed, and I can just transfer it to my desktop config file with a simple error. And it's that simple. And that's why I keep my config files on Megasync. I can just put the change right on the file, save it, and then forget it. It will automatically sync to the Megasync, and on my desktop it will automatically sync the change to my desktop, and I don't have to do anything else. At some point I will put it on the GitHub, and then there will just be that manual change that I have to upload it to the GitHub first, and then on my desktop I have to download the change, and everything else will be the same. And this is my config fish file, where I put some config files as abbreviations. I have it for fish, for i3 config, and for i3 status. So this is of course on Mega. I just changed it for this virtual machine to make an example. And you can put this for any config file that you want. You just take the original file, then the backup file, and you put this on the end just in case you close your terminal, that it won't terminate your Meld. So for instance, my Meld here is opened. If I close the terminal, you can see that my Meld is still open. If I would just run Meld from my terminal, and when I close the terminal, Meld would terminate also. That's why you put this on here. And that's all.